Hello everybody and welcome back. In this episode we're going to be building this latch up front on our chest, the side handlebars, and the back hinges. To get us started, we're going to have to fix up our hierarchy from last time because we've got pieces all over the place. So we're going to go ahead and start by selecting everything, edit, delete by type history, go down into this P-Cube 3. That's our base. Gotta rename that back. Middle click it, drag it up into our bottom group. And this P cylinder group 2, which has nothing in it, deleted. Now that we've done that, Control Alt S. And let's zoom in and get ready to work on that front latch. Hit spacebar to pull up our front view. Give it a good zoom in. And it's fairly square, so I'm just going to go ahead and pop in a cube, move it up, rotate around, pull it out. I'm going to scale it until it looks to be the right size. That seems about right. Not going to line it up perfectly because remember the reference image isn't perfectly centered. But that feels roughly correct. I'm going to hit D and V to move my pivot on this plaque to the back, because we're going to want to line it up onto the wood later. Then I'm going to build out this middle bit. Actually, I'm going to make it a little thinner. That feels good. Alright, now let's go ahead and duplicate it. Hold Shift, pull out a clone, hold V, move it back until it snaps on top of the old version. I'm going to make this one shorter for that little ring. That feels good. Let's make this one a little thicker. Alright, I'm going to go back to the original version. Let's go ahead and grab our Insert Edge Loop tool. Make sure that it's adding in 2 edge loops. Yep. Gonna add 2 vertically and 2 horizontally. Move that out of our way. Oh. Come back over here to the front view. Let's go ahead and scale these up. And I want to move them to line up to the bottom and top of the centerpiece of this latch. That feels good. And then same thing with the other 2 edge loops. Scale them out this way. Good. And now this middle face I will extrude outwards until it sticks through that latch. Good. Now that I've gone ahead and done that, I'm also going to go ahead and move this piece a little bit more forward. And if I want to line that up perfectly into the middle of the centerpiece, I can go ahead and select the centerpiece, go ahead, use my multi-cut tool, add an edge loop that goes down the middle, grab this thing, go back to Modify, Center Pivot, hold the V key, and drag it until it's centered on that edge loop. And then we can go back and delete that guide. Now let's go back to the ring portion and delete some faces to hollow it out. So we want to line up some edge loops to match this version. So I'm going to go ahead and cut in a couple. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Now, based on our front view, I'm going to grab one of these edges. I'm going to hold V while I move it to snap it until it's perfectly in line with the neighbors. 1, 2, the bottom 1, 3. So all of those cuts line up. And then I'm going to grab this top one and I'm going to position it about there. Then I'm going to go ahead and grab this front piece, Control 1. I'm going to grab these 2 faces. I'm actually going to scale them out just a bit. to get this little curve shape. And then I'm going to delete them. Then we're going to double click these two edge loops and bridge them. And that'll give me interior walls. If we go back to Control 1, you can see that now we've got a ring. Now when we hit Smooth Preview, it ends up pretty close on the outside, but the inside ends up being a little bit too curvy for my liking, so I'm going to go back to the Control 1 view. Let's go ahead and add some edge loops to fence this. So we're going to go ahead and add 1, 2, let's go ahead and actually make sure that this is symmetrical. So 50, 50, 50, 50, and then we can go 10, 10, 90, 90, 10, 10. Alright, and the top ones, good. Control 1, woo! Object mode, smooth preview, much better. Now let's also make it a little flatter this way around. Same thing, 50, 20, 20. Delete all of our guide edges. There we go. Smooth preview, looking good. Now we've got to fix and fence our back piece of the latch. So, to start with, I'm going to go ahead and go to object mode, and I want these two pieces to be moved together, so I'm going to group them, modify center pivot, hit the D key, hit the V key, and now I want to snap it onto the wood, so I'm going to go to my side view, hold the V key, pull it so that it's flush with the wood. There we go. And now I want to go ahead and slice this in half, because if we look on the reference image, whoop, go back to my front view, we have this cut that separates it from the piece that's on the lid and the piece that's on the base. So we're going to go ahead and add 2 multi-cuts, 1 and 2, and we're going to line each of those up to this little gap that I left between my lid and my base. So 1 and 2, and this whole ring of faces, goodbye. Control delete. Then let's go to object mode, Control 1, because we need to bridge in that hole on the inside. So go ahead and double click that, bridge it, double click this, bridge it, and now I've got some n-gons that need fixing. So I'm going to double click the top half in face select, Control 1, and now we can look at it from the bottom. We'll add in a couple of edge loops to cut up this n-gon. Same thing on the bottom, Control 1, face select, double click, Control 1, rotate around, add in our multi-cuts. No more n-gons. Control 1 again. Let's hit smooth preview. Alright, quite a bit of fencing needs to happen. Control 1. We need to make sure that these ends are holding up. So we're going to go ahead and add a 10 there, and a 10 there, a 10 here, 10 there. Smooth preview. Now we're holding that square shape up a little better. Let's go ahead and also flatten up the top edge, 10. Bottom edge, 10. Smooth preview. We're losing sharpness on the cut. So this time I'm going to go 10 and 10. Let's go 90 and 20 on the top half. Delete our guide edges. That's feeling a little better. Now I need to make the centerpiece feel square. So 50 and 50. 10, 10, 10, 10. Now we're keeping that square shape. I don't want it to curve in, so we'll add a couple more on the sides. 10, 10. I believe this was 30, 20. But I sort of want it symmetrical, so let's see what we can do about that. I'm going to go ahead and delete this old fence. Add one that's 50% of the way there. And then add one that's 10 and 10, and then delete that 50. Sure. Let's go ahead and delete this guide edge. And now we've got this blending between the base and the hip, or the extruded portion, so we also want to fence that off. So we're going to have another edge loop here, and then two on either side, just to minimize that blending in. We're also going to want an edge loop around the base of the extrusion, get that nice hard edge in, and then one more time up here. Ooh. And once around the base. And that feels quite nice. Let's go to object mode, control 1. And now we see that after we've fenced it off and we've added in that cut, that a ring doesn't quite fit into the top piece of metal. I believe that even though this is, we might have cut it a little bit too high. So what we're going to do to fix that, we're going to start by moving the whole thing a little lower, specifically this bottom portion. Gonna move that a little bit low, because we've got a little bit of room in here. And then we're going to go ahead and fix this top piece. I think I like it flush there. But we can see that the cut here doesn't line up with the cut there. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some of these faces along the bottom. Yep, control 1. I'm gonna extrude them down. And then I'm going to add in another fence here. And that feels quite a bit better. And I'm also going to go ahead and grab the faces on the top of my ring here and move them up. So let's go ahead and do that. Make sure I've got all of those selected. And we're just going to pull them up, center them into that piece of the latch. And that feels alright. Now if you want to add in these two screw shapes, that's very easy. What you can do, because they're fairly flush against the material, we can just go ahead and add in a disc and line it up on top. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. I'm going to make a disc, pull it out here, and let's take a look at this grid pattern and our inputs. What we're going to do is we're going to keep the subdivision mode on circle this time. We're going to crank up our sides to 4. And what that's going to do is it's going to give us this nice square grid. I can go into faces. I can select some of these, this little cross shape, and I can go ahead and extrude them in. Control E, push them in, and same thing with this edge on the outside. Double click that, extrude it down, and now I've got the head of a screw. Let's go ahead and make sure that that extrusion and that little divot are the same depth. Go to object mode. Let's go ahead and drag it up, rotate it around 90 degrees, scale it down, hold D, move the pivot to the back, and then we want to snap it onto the surface of our latch. So hold V and drag it in, move it over here to the side, scale it down, move it into position, make it not that huge. Let's smooth preview it and see how that looks. That doesn't look too bad. Maybe it's still a little bit too big. And then we'll give it a little rotate so that it feels organic. Then I'm going to go up to mesh. I'm going to go to my mirror options because I want to copy it over, but I don't want it combined. Hit apply. Let's see where that went. Woo! X but negative. Let's change that to X but positive. Here's my copy. And then I'm going to grab my copy and rotate it around some more. Oh. Modify center pivot. And just give it a little rotate so that it doesn't feel like I actually mirrored it. And then select both of my copies, hold right click down to the bottom, assign standard surface. And I've got 2 screws on that center latch. Now, last thing for the center latch is to arrange my hierarchy correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of my pieces, edit delete by type history. Then we're going to go ahead and start moving pieces around. Oh, still have some history lying around, it seems. Edit delete by type history. Alright. Then we've got the pieces that we want hooked up to the top, which are these. We need to separate the bottom piece. So double click that, select it, separate. Good. These 4 pieces up top get grouped, Control G. This becomes latch underscore top. And then this piece down here becomes latch underscore bottom. And now we're good to go. Let's go ahead and drag those pieces up into our chest. So latch top can go into top, and latch bottom can go into bottom. Double click everything in our chest, edit delete by type history, and we can delete this pdisk1. And that is all of the groups for that front latch. Now let's go ahead and start those handles. So we're going to go ahead and grab this image plane, which is image plane 3. We're going to go ahead and bring it a little closer just so we can get a good look at what we're working with here. Let's go ahead and zoom in. And we can see that we've got this fairly thin plaque on the wood, and then this little shirt-shaped extrusion on which the handle is attached. So let's go ahead and build that up. Let's go ahead and swap this over to my left view. Alright, and actually we're building on the other side. So I believe, yes, since front is this way, we're looking at the wrong side. So let's swap left to right. There we go, now we're on the same side. And let's go ahead and start building up this handle. So we're going to start with a cube. Hold V, drag it over here, move it up. Should already be lined up. And now we want to scale it up so that it lines up with this top part of our chest. It looks to be about the same width, just eyeballing it there. So we'll go ahead and scale it up. Scale it up. Maybe make it a little wider. Drop it down, see what that looks like. That feels okay. Wish we had a good side view reference, but unfortunately we do not. That feels alright though. Now that we've gone ahead and lined it up, we know that it's very thin, so let's go ahead and squish it down nice and flat. Let's go ahead and pop over to our front view real quick, hit F, hold D, hit the V key, move the pivot to the back, move the whole object again with the V key, snap it onto the surface of our chest. Let's see how much give there is between the crack and the top of the handle. Not very much, so we'll move it up just a pinch. Alright, and now let's get to work sculpting this out. So we're going to go ahead and grab our insert edge loop tool. And to get that bend in it, I'm just going to go ahead and add 2 edge loops, 1 and 2, just like that. And we're going to go ahead and zoom again. Let's go to edge select. I want to select this corner edge and this corner edge back here. I want to move them down just a pinch. Get that curve up top. Whoop. Smooth preview. We just want to get that nice smooth curve up top. Let's go ahead and move this over this way and go back to my right view. And then we want to do the same thing on the bottom because we've got this bend up here. So we're going to go ahead and actually go to face select, select this bottom face, pull that up, and that starts giving us that shape we're looking for. If we want the corners a little bit more rounded, we can go ahead and grab our multi-cut tool, add in an edge loop, let's say 20 and 20, rotate back around, grab these 2 edges, 1 and 2, and drag those down so that we get more of a square shape along the bottom. Maybe we pull them in, see how that looks. Doesn't look too bad. But since we added those edge loops up top, this is starting to get a little flatter, so we're going to want to grab these 2 edge loops again, 1 and 2, drag those down a little bit more. Good stuff. And now that we've got that base shape built in, let's go ahead and build this little t-shirt shape where the hinge hangs off of. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and break up this middle portion. We're going to go ahead and add an extra edge loop about halfway down. Oh, that's not halfway. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and extrude these faces that form that T shape. It's a little bit wider, so we'll grab those as well. So we're just going to go ahead and extrude those out. Let's go back to smooth preview, see how we're doing. We've got something that feels close. It's going to need a lot of fencing. So let's go ahead and zoom in. We're going to start with a fence around the base so that it doesn't blend up from the base. We're also going to need to add some more edge loops around the corners. So we'll add in a couple there, and there, right here. Oh, let's make it symmetric. Let's go ahead and add a 50% cut, delete half of it so we can mirror it in a bit. We're going to go ahead and add in that edge loop there. See how that's doing. This isn't looking square, so we'll add one here. Good. One on the inside. Much better. Now let's handle this. We've got one there, we've got one there. I want one here and one up here. Okay. Let's go ahead and drop that one in. Smooth preview it one more time. One more up here. There we go. And that is our little t-shirt shape. Fully fenced. It does have that dip in the middle. So let's go ahead and go back to face select. And I'm going to select these faces in the middle to curve down. 1, 2, 3. Drag those down. See what that looks like. maybe I want to add in an edge loop here, and go ahead and grab that edge loop. 1, 2, and 3. Let's see if I can get that edge selected. There we go. And smooth preview, and pull that up just a bit. Good. So there's our little t-shirt shape. Let's go to object mode. We've added a few too many edge loops around the bottom here. When we were fencing up our t-shirt shape, we accidentally made this corner really sharp. So we're just going to go ahead and grab some of these edges and spread them out. And that will help that problem. Remember that we're trying to get that curved shape down here. So we're going to need to spread a lot of these out. Pull this edge loop in maybe. There we go. Now we still have that nice circular bottom. Let's also fix the top because this has become quite a bit sharper. So we need to just spread out our edge loops a bit. We'll go there, 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 and we just want to make it feel round. There we go. Move this one up a bit. Smooth preview. And we just want to make this curve nice and smooth. There we go. Alright, so we fixed that. Object mode, mesh, mirror. Let's pull up our mirror settings because this time we do want to combine it. And we are mirroring in the Z direction. So let's go ahead and do that. And positive and apply. And there we go. Now that I've mirrored it, I need to zoom in. I want to just make sure that none of my fencing edge loops have caused n-gons, because sometimes they won't merge correctly. But it looks like all of ours are good. Alright, now that we've done that, it's time to build up that little handlebar. And the way we're going to do that, very simply, I'm going to start by hiding all of this. So let's go ahead and minimize both of those. And I'm going to move my chest out of the way. I'm going to name this handle base. Handle base. Drag it into my chest real quick. And pull my chest off to the side. Alright. So the way I'm going to build this little McDonald's handle is I'm going to use the sweep mesh tool. And the way we use our sweep mesh tool is if we click this sweep mesh button, the one that looks like a little noodle, we get a tube. And we are taken to our attribute editor where we have this sweep mesh creator. Now the sweep mesh creator lets us manipulate the tube so we can change the number of sides the tube has. We can change the scale. We can spin it around. We can give it a little twist. All sorts of fun things. The sweep mesh tool is usually used for making rope or cable, or in our case, this little strange curve. And the way you change the shape of this curve, this tube, is with this curve on the inside. You can barely see it here, it's a dark blue, but if I click it, you can see that it's nice and green, and I can go to the control vertex. Let's hit 4 so we can see through our tube, and we can see these 4 purple points. So what this is it's a NURBS curve, which is over here in the curves panel, right? And what we can do is we can select any of these vertices, and it will bend the tube to follow along with our curve. And this is what we're going to use to create our little McDonald's shape. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at it from this angle. We're going to grab a couple of these vertices, and we're just going to create something that looks like half of it, right? So just this portion. Maybe a little short. Good, let's say that that's good enough for our purposes. Let's go back to 5. Now that we've got this done, what we can do is go ahead and select the object, and we're going to change a couple of the attributes. So we're going to go back to our sweep mesh creator. We don't really need 6 subdivisions. I'm going to bring this down to 4. And then let's bring our scale profile way down. Okay. Now we're gonna go ahead and bring our chest back. Oop, bring that back to the origin. Now I'm just going to move my curve, not the sweep mesh object. And by moving the curve, the object comes with it. I'm going to rotate my curve 90 degrees. I'm going to line it up onto my object. Let's go ahead and see that we've got it way too big, so we're going to need to scale it down some. That's better. How low does it go? It goes way not that low. We're not going to worry about the sweep mesh too much right now. Let's go ahead and go to our side view real quick. And let's line this up properly so the edge goes there. And we want to go back to our control vertex. And I want to drag this little edge, or this little vertex, to about there. That's where I want the top of my pinpoint to be. So then we're going to go ahead and grab this one, drag it lower, this one, drag it lower, maybe a little higher. Good. So here's my M shape. One more time, I'm going to go over to the sweep mesh creator. And I'm going to come down to this precision bit, and I'm going to crank that up. And as I do, I get a couple more curves in here, and this shape becomes a little bit more pronounced. Let's go ahead and angle this out a bit more. Let's see what we're looking like. Alright, can I make my profile a little thinner? Let's go back to my attribute editor again. Make it a little thinner. See how we're looking. Alright, let's call that close. Now what we're going to do is I am going to select my sweep object, not my curve, and I'm going to go up to Edit, Delete by Type History, and you'll notice that my sweep mesh creator is gone. My sweep object is now its own independent object, and if I move my curve at all, my object no longer comes with it. So we can go ahead and delete our curve, and we can focus on our sweep mesh. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete a couple faces from the top, because I want the top to be nice and straight. So I'm going to double click this edge and just extrude it up. And that'll give me a nice straight edge. And I'm going to leave it a little bit of room so that we can create an anchor that curves in. Down here, I think I can also go ahead and maybe delete a couple of these edge loops that aren't doing a whole lot. See how that works. Actually, I like that one. Sure, so I'll just delete that one. Then we're going to go ahead and work on the top of this handlebar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this top edge loop again, extrude it out. I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. And I'm going to extrude it out one more time so that I have a couple of faces to work with. I'm going to go ahead and select those faces, push them into the t-shirt shape on my handle base. We're going to go ahead and grab the whole object. We're going to move it back a bit. Ooh. Modify center pivot. Move this back just so that it feels centered in that little t-shirt alcove. And then these faces here, these diagonal faces, I'm going to go ahead and select them and Control Delete them. And now I'm going to bridge them back together. So we're going to go back to our poly modeling shelf and bridge them back together. And it's not going to look like anything's changed, and the reason is because nothing has yet, but we're going to change our curve type from linear to blend. And now that we've got it on blend, we can add some divisions, and we can get a nice curve up here. Now some of these edges might pinch into each other. Let's go ahead and fix that. Double click them, hit F, recenter our camera, go to vertex select, smooth preview so that we can select some of these edges and just move them around so that the edges aren't clipping into each other. Hit 3, and that's already looking a lot better. And now that we've got that set up, we can just mirror this over. So we'll go to Mesh and Mirror. Let's make sure that our settings are all right. We want to mirror it in the Z direction because we've got our blue arrow pointing that way, but we want it negative because our blue arrow is pointing this way, and we'll hit apply. And we'll zoom in. Let's switch to our smaller mirror tools. So some of our edges have blended together. Let's see if we can increase this merge border threshold. See if we can get that to patch up correctly. And there we go. That is our little McDonald's handle. Good. So now we've finished up our handle. Let's go ahead and, oh, you know what? Real quickly, let's go ahead and optimize this. So I'm going to go to Control 1. And I want to delete all of the back faces so that when we smooth it, we don't have this little curve up top and bottom. We want it to feel like a flush piece of metal. So all of these faces on the back need to go. So we'll just go ahead and select all of the fencing edges. And then delete all of the other ones. So all the way up here. Delete. Let's hit smooth preview, and now it feels nice and flush. Object mode, Control 1. There we go. Let's drag our sweep 1 into our chest. We're going to go ahead and name this handle. And we're going to go ahead and group our handle base and handle. And this can also be named handle underscore group. Let's go with that. And since we are already here talking about optimizing our topology, let's go back to our latch real quick. Let's go ahead and select our latch pieces, Control 1, and delete the backs on all of these. Face, all of these, goodbye, all of these, goodbye, over here, goodbye, all of these, goodbye. And then same thing on the top, rotate back around, object mode U, Control 1. And I don't want to delete these faces since those might be visible when we open the chest. So we're going to go ahead and just select these. The pieces that are definitely up against the wood, delete them. Good stuff. Control 1 again. Let's also go ahead and move our top up just for a bit. So yeah, I want to leave these faces behind since they are exposed. I only care about the ones that are hidden by the wood. Alright. Before we move on to our hinges, let's also go ahead and mirror our handle group. So we'll go to Mesh and Mirror. And this time we're going in the negative X direction. Let's see if we got it right. Sure did. Alright, works for me. Good, 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 good. And now let's move on to our hinges. So we're going to go ahead and grab that image plane 3, move it off to the side so we can see the back of our chest this time. And we can hide the other ones. So let's go back to our layers panel and let's hide those. Hit the V key. Oh, but they're currently all inside the same layer. So what we're going to do real quick, we're going to grab 1 and 2 and also 4, make a new layer, create layer from selected. We're going to go ahead and name this front reference. Woo, caps lock. There we go. And we'll hide those for now. Did I not put this one in? Alright, what we're going to do then is we're going to grab image plane 2. We're going to right click in here and we're going to add selected objects. There we go. Now we can hide all 3 of those. Good stuff. Now let's take a look at our hinges. So we have this little square shape with a cylindrical hinge in the middle, 2 separate plaques, and this little gap along the bottom so that when you open it, the hinge slides down in this little gap. So we're going to go ahead and build all of that. To start with, I want to build that square section. And the way we're going to do that is with our sweep mesh tool again. So we're going to go ahead and drag our chest over to the side for a bit. Whoop, goodbye. And this time, instead of just clicking the sweep mesh tool, we're going to come over to our curves menu, and we're going to click this square. There it is, we've got a square. And if we look in our outliner, we've got this NURB square with 4 separate pieces that represent the sides of that square. Now that we've got that, we're going to go ahead and select that group, drag it over here. Let's move our chest back into position. We're going to again select that square group, scale it up, rotate it around. There we go. Oop, a bit more. And we're going to line it up with the back of our chest. So hold V, drag it into position. It looks like it lines up about halfway with these little lines. So we'll line it up there, and we'll scale them down until they feel like they're the right scale. So, don't select the NURB, select the group. Scale that down. That feels about like the right size. And once you have them in the right size, we'll rotate back around, and we'll actually pull them away from the chest a bit, and we'll click our sweep mesh tool. I'll go back to poly modeling and click sweep mesh. Now with all of these NURBs selected, not the group, when I click sweep mesh, I will get these 4 sweep meshes, 1 through 4, and I will have my sweep mesh creator that I can modify, and it will change all of the sweep meshes at the same time because they were all created at the same time. So we're going to start by lowering our scale profile, getting them nice and thin. Let's see how thin we can get them. About there, that seems reasonable, maybe a little thicker actually. Sure. And then I'm going to increase my precision a bit, just so that we have some edge loops to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up to, about there is fine. And then I'm going to go ahead and delete 2 of these corners. I'm going to select the other 2. Edit delete by type history. Delete the NURBS group. Let's rotate around. And oh, you know what? I accidentally left these as octagons. Let's go ahead and undo a bit. I don't want to delete by type history because I need to lower my sides down. There we go. Now we can go ahead and delete these. Delete by type history. And delete the NURBS cube, or the new NURBS square. And now we can properly build up those corners. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these 2 corners on the edge here. Let's go to edge. Select this one. Refocus my camera by hitting F. I'm going to grab my multicut tool. Add in an edge loop about there. That's 40, that's 60. Works for me. Grab these corner faces. Delete them. Go to object mode, with both of those selected, mesh combine, edge mode, these edges, I'm going to go ahead and bridge them together, and same thing we did last time, swap our curve type to blend, and increase our divisions to get a nice corner. That feels good. Now we're going to zoom out a bit and start doing some counting so that we can get this piece properly mirrored. So if you've created an odd number of edges, let's double check here. I think I have 6. If you've got it symmetrical, you can just delete the excess. And now we've got 1 corner of the box. So we're going to go ahead and go to mesh and mirror. And we've currently got it to x-axis. If we don't want to deal with that, we can swap it to object mode. So let's go ahead and move my pivot. We're going to go to D and V, move our pivot, and we're going to move our pivot there, and we're going to move our pivot there, so that it's perfectly lined up with those midway cuts. Then we're going to go back to mesh and mirror, but we're going to change our axis position from world to object. And now that has put our pivot right here, so we can change our direction to positive. Good. And now I'm going to hit the G key to repeat the previous operation. This time I'm going to change my axis to Y and change my axis position to object, and there is our completed ring, a completed hinge. So there it is. Now it's time to build the framework around it. It does appear that it's supposed to be centered on the gap, so we're going to move it up a bit. There we go. And now it's time to build the plaques around it. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by adding a square, cube, drag this over here, move it into position. We're going to go ahead and move it down so that it lines up there, in so that it lines up there, scale it out to the same size as our hinges, and then make it nice and thin. Good stuff. Move it in between the two pieces. Let's go ahead and come to our view over here. Hit D, V. We want to make this flush with the wood, so we're going to bring the pivot over to the back, hold V again, move it there, and we're going to be breaking this plaque into two pieces the same way we did with the latch, but we're not going to get there quite yet. Instead, what we want to do is we want to add this little cylindrical bit up top. So we're going to come back over here, and we're going to go ahead and duplicate this ring, Control D. Now I have two of them. Then what we're going to do is we're going to select some faces. I only care about the top faces, so I'm going to go ahead and select just those. Then I want to select everything else, so I'm going to hold Shift and drag, and that will invert my selection. I can then delete these faces. Go to my scale tool, scale these up, and that's going to be the version of the pipe that is holding my hinge in place. So we're going to go ahead and come back to my base. Let's go to object mode, scale this up just a shred bigger, and we're going to add some multi-cuts. So to start with, I'm going to go ahead and add one that cuts it in half so that I'm just working on the top half right now. Then we're going to go ahead and add a couple multi-cuts up here. So I'm going to go 1 and 2, get it nice and flush with that corner. Good. Then I want a couple of edges that go vertically. So I'm going to go 50, 40, 40, delete the center edge lip. Select these two edge lips and scale them out until they're just wider than that cylinder. And then we're going to go ahead and go to object mode. These two pieces mesh, combine. Now these are one piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and bridge the two together. I'm going to start by deleting the back row faces here, and the back row faces here. Whoop, hit 4 on accident. We're going to want to line up all of these edge lips, or we can just go ahead and delete them. So let's go ahead and select all of these. Whoop, not you. There we go. Control delete. And then let's go to our vertex view, make sure that we don't have any funny business going on. Great. I'm going to go ahead and select this face and delete it. And now we're going to go ahead and bridge these two edges and these two edges. And that's going to give me the dome that's going to house my piece. Oh, doesn't quite look right. Object mode, Control 1. Let's find out what's going on. Okay, we need some fencing. Let's start there, just so that we don't get that pinching happening. Still very much is. Okay. Let's see if we can add a couple more, see if that helps. Not really. Alright. Let's go ahead and bridge this hole closed, see if that helps. Alright. Certainly has. Let's go ahead and add an edge loop around this way. Sure. Let's add a couple more. There we go. Now it's holding its place. Now let's go ahead and fix up this N-gon up here. I'm going to start by... Let's go back to Control 1. Even though these faces are centered, the rest of them most certainly aren't. So I'm going to go to Face Select. Let's go into our side view. Zoom in nice and close. I'm just going to grab all of these faces, not those. I'm going to move them up until this feels more like a centered pentagon. Let's go back to our smooth preview. Alright, now let's break up this pentagon. I'm going to go ahead and add an edge loop. Object mode, Control 1. Face select, please. Deselect that. Hold Shift. We want to cut it in half. And then we're just going to go ahead and hook up those two edges. That fixes that side. We need to bridge together this side. Multi-cut tool again. Hook that up. Then we need to add in our fencing again. Or we can just mirror it over. I like that idea better. Delete this half. Object mode. Mesh. Mirror. Negative X direction. Axis position object. There we go. Let's smooth preview it again. See what that looks like. Let's go ahead and move our hinge back a little. And one final bit of fencing. I'm going to go ahead and select these two faces and these two faces, and I'm going to hit Control E to extrude them, but this time I'm just going to add an offset. Let's add a 0.1 offset. Woo, it's too big. 0.05. Still a bit too small. 0.0. Oh, let's go 0.0. I don't want to go 0.01. 0.02. There. And now we smooth it. And that looks okay. Let's maybe make it a little less sharp. Select these edges right here and move them in a bit. That feels better. Alright, let's go ahead and call that good for now. Now that is the top half of our hinge up here. We're going to do something similar down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and grab our object again. And this time I'm just going to hold Shift and clone it down. And we're going to go ahead and line it up. Same thing it was up top, so that it holds this nice and snug. Because if we look back at our hinge, what we're going to do is we're just going to break this part in half and move the bottom half down and then bridge it back together. So let's go ahead and do that. Come up here. We're going to go to Face Select. Select all of the top faces. Let's come over to our front view. Hit F. Just the top half. We're going to go to Mesh. And we're going to go to Separate. Or I'm going to go to Edit Mesh Detach. Then we'll go to Mesh Separate. Drag this half. Modify Center Pivot. Down a bit. How far down do we drag it? Let's double check. Not too far. We want it about there. So let's go ahead and say that this feels right. Zoom back in. Maybe pull it up a little bit. Then we're going to go ahead and go to Face. And I want to delete these two faces. And we're going to come up here, and we're going to go ahead and delete these two faces. Then we'll go to Object Mode, select two pieces, Mesh Combine, Control 1, and we're going to start bridging. So we want to select these edges here, and the same edges up here, this one, all the way to this one, bridge them together. That's going to give us the cage where our hinge is going to be. Let's go ahead and Control 1 again so that we can get a better idea of from our reference. There doesn't appear to be any plaque underneath them, so what we're going to do, let's come back over here, Control 1, Object Mode, Control 1, there we go. We need to patch up the underside of all of this. So we're going to go to Face Select. All of these faces underneath will be deleted. Let's double check, make sure we don't have too many selected. Alright, I want to delete all of these. Let's go ahead and add an edge loop real quick. Please. Yes, I want to add a nice edge loop down here. I'm going to go ahead and select it, scale it flat, move it over here. Just close enough. Then I'm going to select all of these faces underneath that edge and delete them. And we're going to have to bridge that hole closed in a bit. So we're going to go ahead and start by bridging these together. Bridge. Same thing up here. This one to this one. Bridge. This one to that one. Bridge. And all the way around. Bridge those. We're going to do the same trick down here where we add in a multi-cut. Come on over to our side view. We're going to select that edge. We're going to scale it flat. We're going to pull it nice and close here. Face these, delete them. And now we need to bridge in the gaps down here. So we're going to select the top half, or you can do it from the front view. Let's deselect these. Control 1, so that we can see what we need to bridge. Woo. Let's select a face and hit F. Let's full screen this perspective. So if we come in here, let's go ahead and Control delete that edge. Alright. Now let's rotate to the other side. Control delete this edge. Let's go to vertices. And I want to select this corner vertex in here. Delete that. Move. Grab my multi-cut tool and I want to hook up these two edges. Let's see if it'll let me do it. From there to there. Rotate around to the other side, same thing. This vertex goes away. We add in this edge here. Whoop. Gotta recenter my camera every so often. There we go. So now that is nice and put together. Good. Now let's go ahead and continue bridging up this hole. So we're gonna go to edge, zoom in a bit. We're gonna select these two edges and these two edges. Go ahead and bridge them. Good. Now we need to patch up this whole section, so we're going to go ahead and select this edge and the far opposite one. Bridge those together. And then we need to add in multi-cuts until it matches the backboard. So we're going to go ahead and see if there's a halfway edge. There is, so we only need to grab about half of the box. So we're going to go ahead and add that in 50% of the way through. Rotate this around, see if it looks alright. Good. We want an edge about there and an edge loop about there. Edge, select these and bridge them. And that is the top half fully bridged and fixed. Let's go ahead and look at it from the side. This edge doesn't exist. This face is an N-gun. So we're going to need to fix that. Hold Control. On our multi-cut tool, add in this edge loop up top, and hook that up. And then we'll delete the bad version of it. So we're going to go to full view, Control 1, delete everything over here on the left, and we're going to mirror this bit over once we're done. But for now, if we hit smooth preview, let's go ahead and Control 1 again, see how it looks. Doesn't look broken at all. Let's go ahead and fix the bottom. Control 1 again. Alright, let's zoom in, go to vertex. Let's go ahead and delete the diagonal edge again. Control delete. Go to vertex. Delete this one. Control delete. Grab our multi-cut tool. Add that in. Add this cut. Fix up the n-gon. Good. Now let's start bridging edges. Control 1. We can't bridge this one back together because I deleted the other side. So we'll just grab this edge and extrude it out. Let's rotate around. Hold V. And snap that into place. And now we'll use our vertex merge tool. So we'll go ahead and select that vertex and this vertex and merge them. Hook up those two faces together. Rotate back around. We've got these two edges we need to add in, so we'll grab our multi-cut tool. Add in edges that feel appropriate. Go to our vertex select and start selecting pairs. Oop. Vertex select. Object Control 1, vertex. Let's go ahead and rotate and zoom in. These two vertices, merge them. These two vertices, merge them. Hit smooth preview, make sure we didn't miss one there. Looks alright. Now let's go ahead and continue bridging this hole closed. These two, and zoom in a bit closer. These two and these two. Let's go ahead and bridge those. And then these two and these two. Bridge those closed. Good. Let's go back to object mode, Control 1, smooth preview, looking good. Let's go ahead and double back over to our image reference, see what this looks like. That looks fine. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to start by mirroring it over to the other side. Mesh mirror, let's make sure that our settings are all right. Where is our pivot? Aha, there it is. X negative direction should be X positive. Apply. Swap axis position back to object. There we go. Now, based on our reference, we don't need all of that underneath. We just need a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and delete most of that. So all of this, goodbye. Now we need to bridge in this hole underneath. Control 1. We're going to double click this edge, and to prevent any n-gons, I'm going to click or control click the two end pieces and bridge them, and that will automatically add in all of the edge loops we need to patch that up. Smooth preview it. Alright, I want to add a little bit of fencing. How curved is it in our reference, the bottom bit? Not very. In fact, there's this little dip in the middle. So we're going to go ahead and come back here. I'm going to add a couple of edge loops. Let's go 50-50. And we're going to grab these middle faces and pull them in. Just a tad. Maybe a bit closer because, or a bit more because it's fairly pinched just from the middle and it's fairly flat alongside. So we're going to add in a couple more edge loops actually. We'll go 90 and 90 just to make that nice sharp shape. Select these, select those, pull that in. There we go. And then we'll add our fencing down here at the bottom so that it doesn't pinch up. Good. And then edges over here and edges over here. Good, 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 good. Do we have that fin on the outside? No. So what we're gonna do again is we're actually gonna delete these two edges along the side. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. And then we need to bridge this hole closed. So we're gonna go ahead and double click it, Control 1. Deselect the top and bottom, bridge. Same thing on the other side. Double click, deselect, bridge. Good, good, good. And then this top plaque is a little bit larger, so we're going to go ahead and select all of these top faces. Control 1, and we're going to go ahead and extrude them up. Up until, if we look at our reference images, this one is fairly flush with our main piece, so they can go all the way up. We're going to hold the V key, and we're going to snap them up to that corner, so that it's nice and flush with the cut. Alright, let's go back to our top bit for a bit. We're going to go to face select, woo. We're going to go to face select, and we're going to delete the bottom bit. We're going to select this edge loop. We're going to hold V and snap it up to the top here. Then we're going to go ahead and Control 1, Object Mode, Control 1, Edge, double click this bottom edge, deselect the end caps, bridge, fix that right up, Control 1 again, let's hit Smooth Preview, let's hit Smooth Preview, let's see how we're doing. We need to add some fencing around the gap. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Zoom in. Edge loop right there. Edge loop right here. See how that holds up a little bit better. Let's go ahead and add a couple of extra faces up top up here. Just enough to get that square curved corner that we have up here. These curved corners. Let's go ahead and smooth it again. See how we're doing. Let's go ahead and add an edge loop there and an edge loop there. Actually, we're probably going to end up mirroring it again anyways. Let's go ahead and let's zoom in. I'm going to grab a couple of these edges and move them out, so that we still get that nice smooth corner. Same thing up here. But we don't want this sort of shape happening, so we're going to go ahead and grab these middle vertexes. And we're going to go ahead and move those over here to really round out that corner. We don't want to go ahead and do all of that work over here, so we're just going to go ahead and grab these faces and delete them. Oop, missed a couple. Object mode, this one, mesh, mirror, positive X, object. So now that one is nice and built. Let's go ahead and fix up the bottom one. Do we have rounded corners along here on the bottom one? Doesn't look like it, so we can probably just leave it as is. Alright. Now let's go ahead and delete the back faces. Object mode, Control 1, face select. All of the back faces must go. It is a clearance cell. Delete. All the way around. Delete. Delete the whole back. Same thing on the bottom panel, except for the ones that are pulled away from the body of the chest. All of these faces, goodbye. Same thing on the bottom. Zoom in, make sure I'm getting them all. Good stuff. Delete. Smooth preview. Looks fine. I think I want a little bit more fencing on this middle piece here. I'm not sure if I like the fact that it bulges out to start with. So I'm gonna go ahead and select this edge loop here and this edge loop. I'm just gonna scale them in a bit. There we go. Object mode, control 1. And that is going to be the 2 back pieces for our hinges. Now let's go ahead and add in those screw tops. Same thing we had on the front latch. We're going to rotate around, grab one of these. I'm going to go ahead and Control D to duplicate. Let's hide my options. Pull this open, Control D duplicate. This is disk 4. We're going to go ahead and drag disk 4 all the way down here. And we're going to move it to the back. We're going to hold V and snap it onto our plaques. Let's see where we can get it. Where is it? Over here. We need to move our pivot again. DV, WV, snap it on top of the plaque. Is that on top of the plaque? No, one further back. There. Whoop. Move it back around. Ooh, interesting. Object mode, assign material, standard surface 1. Let's zoom in on it and see what's going on. Ah, we're looking at the back of it. Hold J and rotate it around 180 degrees. That explains why it wasn't working. Hit D, V, move it to the back. V again, snap it to the plaque. Good, good, good. Let's figure out how they're orientated. The top bit has 2, the bottom bit has 2, and then the bottom middle has 1. So we're gonna go ahead and maybe scale these up a little bit bigger. Oh, let's mirror it so that it feels right. So we'll just go ahead and position this one there. Now I want to move my pivot so that I can mirror it properly. So I'm gonna hit D. I'm gonna hold V and move it off of the object so that it's perfectly centered on my plaque. Go ahead and go to Mesh, Mirror, Object, and we'll go ahead and X positive goes to X negative. And for some reason our pivot is rotated around strangely. So let's go ahead and figure out why that is. It's because the object is rotated. So we're going to come up top to Modify, and we're going to look for Freeze Transformation up here in Modify. Freeze Transformations. And what that's going to do is if we look at our channel box, they're now all set to 0001. If I undo that freeze, we've got a bunch of numbers. So that's why we'll just freeze transformations. Okay, now that we've done that, let's move our pivot again. Hit D, hold V. I want to center my pivot, please. Whoop. It's a little finicky for reasons unknown. Alright, let's go ahead and go to Object Mode, please. Select just these 2 pieces. Here we go again. D and V. Thank you. Control 1. Now let's mesh and mirror. X in the negative direction. Axis position object. Much better. They're currently combined, but that's fine. We'll just go ahead and clone them down here. And then we'll go ahead and select these faces, give them a little rotate, select these faces, give them a little rotate. We need to duplicate another copy, object mode, Control D. Move these down here, position them right there, and we'll go ahead and just delete half of these. Object mode. Let's go ahead and rotate this one a little bit. Modify center pivot. Move it into place. Good, get it nice and centered. Perfect. So this is our back hinge. Now we're going to go ahead and select all of the pieces. Those are all of the pieces. We're going to go ahead and Control G. This is going to be hinge. And I believe this is the left hinge. Yes, left. because we're looking at it from behind. And now we're going to select all of this, edit, delete by type history. That's cleared up quite a few groups. Then we're going to go ahead and select everything, delete by type history one more time. Control Alt S, increment and save. Duplicate our hinge or mirror our hinge. Let's see if we can pull it off. But since we are not copying fresh geometry, they are all one object. That's all right. In which case we can just name this group hinges. All of our discs are screws, so we can name these screws. Screws 2, screws 3. Then we've got bottom, we've got top, and we've got actually the hinge. And then we'll drag our hinges and put them in our chest group. And that is going to do it for the end of this episode. In the next episode, we're going to be adding some finishing touches, like fencing our chest.